What's up, everyone? I just checked out Misery for the first time from 1990, so I wanted to review it. Real quick, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Tell me what you thought of Misery if you've seen it. It's really appreciated, and I'm going to try to avoid spoilers in this movie. I can't guarantee it. I will say if I am about to spoil something, but I'm going to try to avoid it, so this should be spoiler-free. So I was really excited to check out this movie, because this is actually a case where I read the book first. It was actually the first Stephen King book I ever read. About a month ago I finished it, so it's the first one. So it's the only Stephen King book I've read, but I'm going to be reading more of them in the future. So I was really excited to check this out, and I've heard this movie's really good in general. It's directed by Rob Reiner, obviously, who's a great director. Stand By Me, Princess Bride. He's done a whole bunch of great movies, and it has Kathy Bates and James Caan in there as well. Two great actors, and Kathy Bates actually won an Oscar for this movie, which is nice to see horror get recognized, in the Oscars. So there's a lot. I was excited for this movie prior to reading the book. But I had the book, so I wanted to read it first before I watched the movie. So I actually got this. So after I finished the book, I got the Scream Factory version of the movie right there. So that's actually a really nice edition of the movie in its own. But I was super excited to check out this movie because it was just, I've heard lots of great things about it. And simply put, this movie is about Paul Sheldon, he's like a famous writer, and he gets in a car accident, and he's essentially kidnapped by Annie Wilkes, who's his #1 fan. And essentially she does some pretty bad stuff to him, and she forces him to write another book in the Misery book series. And so that's really the premise of the movie. If you're familiar with the story, I mean, it's fairly simple, and it's really an iconic story created by Stephen King here. But just to put it simply, I thought this movie was awesome. It's a perfect adaptation of Misery, the book, where, especially because of the acting from Kathy Bates and James Caan, they have a great chemistry together, and they really kind of bounce off each other with, Kathy Bates as the Annie Wilkes, who's like the psychopath, and James Caan, who's kind of this washed-up writer, and kind of this writer in peril kind of guy. And they really do a good job at making these two characters very believable, and that really helps the movie in a lot of ways, especially with Kathy Bates. Obviously, she won the Oscar for it, but her performance is incredible, like comparable to Jack Nicholson in The Shining. It's that good. But in here, Rob Reiner, who's obviously a great director as well, he does a great job with this movie and really capturing the tone and the vibes of this movie. And I thought this movie did an amazing job with Annie Wilkes as the character, where she's, at times she can be this really lovable person, but at times she can just be this completely horrifying, psychopath. So I think he really did a good job at balancing those two in the movie, especially at the beginning. Towards the end, she's crazy, but at the beginning, obviously, she's more likable, and it definitely appeals to people who aren't as familiar with the story, where you're not going to really know what's coming next. And that's really going to make the movie more enjoyable for you. Because in the beginning of the movie, it really tries to make Annie Wilkes lovable, like a really likable character. And it's definitely teasing the audience a little bit there, I think, with that. So that was really cool, I thought. But in general, with the directing, it's really shot, I guess cinematography, it's really shot in this very cinematic fashion. There's a lot of good landscape shots. Just the shots in this movie are very creative, and it's really, an atonement to the cinematographer and the director there. And in general, I think this movie is very similar to The Shining. If you're familiar with The Shining, obviously this is another Stephen King work, but it's more than just that, where Kathy Bates' performance, like I said, is very comparable to Jack Nicholson in The Shining, where I also think just the movie's whole vibe feels very Kubrick, really, where it's just the shots and a lot of the close facial shots where it's kind of like back camp. If you're familiar with Kubrick's style, you'll know what I'm talking about in The Shining, that style of filming that Kubrick really popularized within horror. You see a lot of that here, and I think that I'm completely fine with that. Shining is an amazing movie. This movie's not similar to Shining in any way, aside from just the way it feels, the tone, the vibes, the way it's shot, the acting. Overall, I thought it was a decent comparison. But overall, this movie is just terrific. It takes the book, which is very focused on writing, and really Paul Sheldon writing. His book, his styles of writing, how he writes, what he does. It's really, the whole book is in Paul Sheldon's, his narration. So it really focuses a lot more of his thoughts. Almost probably 60% of the book at least is really just in his thought, things he's thinking. So where you're adapting that's not going to be so super easy if you're adapting that when it's all in, much of the book is in his head. So that's not an easy chore to do, but Rob Reiner does an excellent job here with adapting this. And everyone else who adapted the book, obviously it wasn't only Rob Reiner, but everyone who adapted the book does an excellent job in creating this story for film, where there's a lot left out. If you've read the book, there's a lot of changes made throughout the movie, especially towards the end. They make quite a few changes, but all the changes feel necessary, and a lot of them work, and a lot of them even feel better they almost, I think, make this improve the story. I do like the book more. I think the book was a little bit better, but I don't like comparing book and movie anyways, because I don't think that's a very fair comparison. But a lot of the changes, I think, whereas a lot of things in the book where I don't think they would have worked on movie anyways. So it's a good thing that the movie didn't do them. But overall, I thought it was an amazing adaptation of a Stephen King book. It's the only Stephen King book I've read, but I've seen plenty of other Stephen King movies, and this is probably my favorite one of the ones I've seen. And while the book's very much about like writing and kind of him being a washed-up writer and a lot more stuff along those lines, this movie's very focused on celebrity fandom and crazy fans and celebrity stalkers and stuff like that. And this movie was much more focused on that aspect of the book. While the book did touch on that, it touched on a lot of other things, the movie was 100% focused on that, and I'm absolutely fine with that. It's definitely a needed change. It keeps the movie very simple while still being, a very much a psychological study of Annie Wilkes, and really just a study of fandom and everything in there. The whole movie works in that regard. But I think possibly the best thing this movie did, aside from the acting, is going to be the tone of this movie. Everything from like the winter vibes and like really making the house feel isolated, to like the music they play, and just everything kind of gets put together just to really capture the tone that you feel of this creepiness of being kidnapped and being completely helpless. And Paul Sheldon's completely helpless, where he can't walk and he's stuck in this room with this psychopath, and that's a super creepy concept. And Rob Reiner does an excellent job at just making you feel that way during the movie. And that's definitely one of the biggest strengths of this movie, I think. And it's just, especially with Kathy Bates acting in here, where she just completely feels like this kind of two-sided psychopath. But this whole movie's just really good. He gets right into the action, and overall, it works really well in every aspect of the movie. And especially, I really like the ending of this movie. I don't want to spoil, I don't want to do hard spoilers, but the ending, what they do with the ending, it's really awesome. It's the same ending as the book, pretty much, but it's really awesome. I love it. It's like just such a, I don't know. The ending's great. You have to see this movie if you haven't seen it. It's a classic, and I'm glad I finally got around to checking it out, because it's such an excellent movie. Like, this movie's very creepy, as really all Stephen King works are, and really, like I said, the tone is really done perfectly with the mix of all this lighthearted stuff and the comedic elements to this really just terrifying stuff and messed up stuff that Annie Wilkes makes Paul Sheldon do in this movie. And they really do a good job at balancing those. This movie works really well as a horror movie. If you just want to go in here to get creeped out, it's not like scary, like in your face scary, but it's more the tone scary type stuff, and that really works here. But it also really works as a drama and as a comedy, and even like a psychological study. It works in all those regards. So it's really, I think this movie's really for everyone. Obviously, if you get creeped out easily, it's not going to be for you, but really it works on so many different genres, and that's one of the reasons it's so good, because it's so diverse in how it is. And this movie's just really got it all, and that's not easy to achieve in the horror genre. And it definitely stands out as a very unique horror movie, one of the best Stephen King adaptations. But it's just, a terrific movie overall. Aside from the horror aspects, it's just an amazing movie. So I'm going to give Misery a 94% and a 5 out of 5 stars. It definitely deserves that. I was completely blown away by this movie. It was just a very enjoyable experience, surprisingly, where it's really entertaining. It's really the plot is really intriguing, and you're completely invested in these characters, and it's such an excellent movie. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend you check it out. There wasn't many spoilers in here, I don't think. So I definitely recommend you check it out. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and tell me what you thought of Misery down below in the comment section. Have you seen it? If you have, what do you think about it? If you've read the book, how do you compare the two? I'm definitely interested. I personally like the book a little bit more. Like I said, I don't like comparing those two things. I don't think it's a fair comparison at all. They're both separate and both good in their own right. So that would be my review of both. Anyways, thanks for watching, and have a great day.